Om Stapakaya च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते। So we have started our introduction to the Vedanta philosophy last time. We'll carry on from there. Before starting today's discussion, just let us recapitulate what we had discussed last time. So you can see the image before you. Vedanta denotes the ultimate conclusion of the Vedas. Literally it means end of the Vedas. It primarily means the teachings of the Upanishads and scriptures elucidating those teachings. And the great declaration of the Vedas, that which exists is one, sages call it by various names, tells us that all the different gods and different religions are the manifestations of that one underlying reality. And Upanishads, which are nothing but Vedanta, they analyze the self and distinguish it from gross and subtle bodies, which are only its outer coverings. They are passing. These bodies come and go. They are always changing, and they are not our true self. But we mistake them for ourselves, and that is the cause of our suffering. Number 5, the true self is the only reality and is the only conscious entity, and therefore the ultimate source of every kind of joy we know. So, the source of all joy is not the world but the Atman. That is why it is said, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Brahman, the ultimate reality, is Satyam, that is the only truth. It is Jnanam, that is it is consciousness, and it is infinite. Therefore, since the self is the only source of joy, real joy cannot be had by giving up the self and running after worldly objects. The self is called by different names like Brahman, Atman, or simply Sat. And realization of the self, of this reality, is regarded as the highest knowledge. There is nothing higher than that. This realization can be achieved first by renunciation, and then by Shravan, Manan and Nididhyasana, that is, hearing about the self, reasoning about the self, and then entering into deep meditation on the self. And the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas, if performed with desires, cannot give us the realization of the self or immortality. They can only secure for us a temporary place in heaven. But if all our actions are sacrificed to God, we attain freedom from the bonds of karma and realize that self and achieve our goal of life. So we have just briefly discussed all these last time. So before entering into the topic today, that is the world and Brahman and the relation between them, it is very important when we start the study of Vedanta to know one or two things. First, about the terminology, and secondly, how the reasoning is done in our scriptures. If we don't know that, we will not be able to follow that thread of reasoning. So first we should know that it is mentioned in the Upanishads and later Vedanta literature. What do they call the ultimate reality? What is the term? We have to know. So we all know that that term is Brahman. Another term is Ishvara. What is Ishvara? It is God, the personal God, whom we adore, whom we worship, who is supposed to be the creator, preserver, and destroyer of the universe. The Brahman, the absolute reality, cannot do anything because it is beyond all attributes. But when we see Brahman through Maya, we cannot see Brahman directly till we are in ignorance. So, how to imagine Brahman in our minds? So that is the personal God. Personal God is as much true as much the world is true. Anyway, that is another thing. This is the first thing to know. Now, second thing is, all the scriptures of Vedanta believe that the knowledge of the existence of God is at first not obtained by reasoning alone. It is not just argumentation. Because I may be a big logician, another day somebody else may come who's a bigger expert in arguing. So he will contradict my theories. Then a third person will come, he will contradict the second person's theories. So where is the ground? Where is the ground to stand upon? So Vedanta says that in the beginning, we cannot have reasoning as the only basis of our understanding. After one realizes the truth, then it is okay. Then he goes beyond all reasoning. That is realization. But before that, we have to have faith in something. And what is that faith? In what? That is the Vedas and the teachings which are elucidating what is written in the Vedas. So, therefore, in Vedanta, we see that the attempt is not made to give purely logical proofs for the existence of God, because pure logic has no basis. So, arguments are first based on the scriptures. Then, reasoning is a supplement to that. First, we will say that yes, scriptures say this. Sarvam khalu idam Brahman. Everything is Brahman. Now, how can that be supported by reasoning? So, reasoning is just to justify the scriptural statements. It is necessary for understanding the teachings, for removing our doubts, realizing their cogency, but by itself, only reasoning is an empty form or method of thinking. By itself, it cannot be enough. It can never be enough. The scriptures supply the reason or the matter for speculation, argumentation, and meditation. Otherwise, what will you base your reasoning on? Either there should be some realization. If that is not there, till then, the scriptures are the only basis. So, this kind of dependence on reasoning, on the scriptures, is not new to, this is not peculiar to Vedanta. All religions, when they reason, they base their reasoning on something else. For example, Christians, when they reason, they will base their reasons on the Bible. Buddhism, if they base the reason, they will base the reason on the teachings of the Buddha. Similarly, all religions. So all of them base the reasoning on either the sayings of some prophet or the lives of some prophet. So in Vedanta, our reasoning does not depend upon any man at all. It depends only on some principles which are mentioned in the Vedas. That is, this we have to very thoroughly, this uniqueness of Vedanta we have to understand. So, though all Vedantins primarily depend on the scriptures for belief in God, it is not they throw reasoning to the winds, not at all. They make full use of reasoning in the justification and elaboration of the teachings of the scriptures. They learn from the Upanishads that God is infinite, He is conscious, all-inclusive reality, creator of the universe, etc. And these principles they try to make us understand through reasoning. So if we contradict the scriptures, we have no place to stand on. Then any man can spin any theory. There will be no limit. Any man can come and talk any nonsense. If he is intelligent enough, he'll make us believe black is white and white is black. That is the thing. So now to come back where we left off. We had seen that the source of all kinds of joy is only one, the Atman. So the goal of life is to realize that Atman, to be one with that is to be one with the infinite God, the immortal, and to be one with infinite joy. After that, our life has attained its aim, nothing left to be desired, we are fulfilled forever. And the Upanishad says that then when that happens, the mortal man attains immortality. Man was never mortal. It was just a mistake. And that mistake is eradicated, that ignorance is eradicated when we realize our true self. Now, if Brahman or Atman is the reality underlying the whole universe, as it is said in the scriptures, then the question arises as to the exact relation between that Brahman and the world which we experience. So that we will start our discussion on that today. So I will recommend that you all keep your Tylenols handy because today's will be really, it will be really some kind of headache.
You already injected us.
Yeah. So let's start about this topic about the relation of Brahman and the world which we see and experience. So first of all the scriptures of Vedanta are unanimous that Brahman or Sat or Atman is both the creator and the material cause of the world. Now we have already seen what is the material cause and what is the efficient cause. A potter makes a pot. So potter is the efficient cause, but that mud from which he makes, that is the material cause. So in the universe, God is both. He is also the efficient cause as well as the material from which the whole universe is made. So generally in scriptures it is said when the creation first started, God thought, I am one, I will be many, I will create the world, just to make us understand. So from these statements, creation would appear to be real. God is creating the world. And God, of course, the only creator. But this is okay, we can all understand that. But the problem arises when we find some statements which don't tally with this. What are those statements? They are like na iha nana asti kinchana. Iha, in this world, na, it is not. What? Nana. Nana means bahutva, that is plurality. Kinchana. Kinchana means even a little. In this world, there is no plurality whatsoever. There is no diversity whatsoever. And it is also said in the Kathopanishad that one who sees many here, he is doomed. He is ignorant. He cannot realize the self. So what does this mean now? How to reconcile? God has created the world, we can understand. And the world has many things. Millions of countless of things. But in the same scripture they are telling that no duality exists at all. If someone sees duality, he is in ignorance. He is not seeing correctly. So how are these reconciled? In explanation of this unity of all things, many examples are also given to make us understand. What? A sort of reconciliation. They say what? They say, yes, you see many things, that is correct. There are many things, but there is also unity behind them. How to explain? Wonderful explanations in Vedanta. They are so simple, but they are so apt. They say that gold, from gold you make various ornaments, rings, bangles, necklaces, so many things you make. But are they actually different? They are all made of gold and they can be reduced to gold. So they are one, yet they appear different. Why? Because of two things. First, name. One we call a necklace, one we call a earring. Second is the form. So they say all this is actually one reality. But the names and forms are only different. So in our ignorance, because we cannot see that reality, we think there are many things in the universe. But these are only matters of verbal distinctions. There is a very famous shloka of the Upanishad, Vacharambhanam vikaro namadeyam mrittika eva satyam. It took me around 10 years to understand a little of that. So if we can understand today, then we are all great souls. So in Vedanta, the objects of the worlds are denied separate and individual existence. I and you are not separate. The name and forms are different, that's all. We are all part of one reality. So these kinds of statements about a world and God, they naturally create a small puzzle. They need explanation. Is God really the creator of the world? Then God, the world has to be real. Or is there really no creation? Is this just an appearance? Is God a determinate, knowable reality? Can we know God like we know all these things of the world? Can we know God that way? Can we describe God? Does he have attributes? Or is he indeterminate? What is the real view of the Upanishads? So subsequent Vedanta works take up these problems, and as we have seen in the Brahma Sutra of Badarayana, Badarayana is just another name for Vyasa. There is an attempt to systemize the teachings of the Upanishads. So since those teachings have their subject matter Brahman, so they are called Brahma Sutras. Then they are also called Shariraka Sutras. One who has a Sharira is Shariraka, that is man. So they are meant for men. Men means human beings. So all these terms we should know. If someone tells Brahma Sutras one moment and Sharirika Sutras another moment, we should know they are the same scripture. Once we keep on discussing, they will automatically be remembered. But naturally, Brahma Sutras is an advanced study. Now we will discuss in brief what Vedanta says, how it reconciles these problems. So now first, to start your headache, let me share some views about the world and Brahman, which is according to other philosophical systems. Let me show that. So you can see here. Now please pay attention to each point, because each point we will discuss. So these are different theories by schools other than Vedanta. Okay. So first one, they say that the world is a product of material elements which themselves combine together to form the world. They themselves combine, there is nothing else necessary. Second view is that the world is a transformation of an unconscious nature that spontaneously evolves all objects. Like they will say that the tree is there. Now tree grows of itself. It produces flowers, fruits and etc. So they say that the world also, there is an unconscious nature which automatically evolves the whole world from the gross to the subtle. Third theory says that no, we don't admit this. We say that there is a God also. So they say that there are two independent realities. One is God, one is matter. And God is the creator. Out of matter he creates the universe. Like a carpenter, he creates things out of wood. Similarly, they say carpenter and wood are separate. Carpenter is conscious, wood is unconscious. So the third theory says that God is conscious, the nature is unconscious. So just like a potter making a pot, God creates the universe from this nature. Okay? The fourth viewpoint is the world is an aggregate of different momentary elements. Means this viewpoint says there is nothing permanent called God. Just momentary elements are there which appear to be permanent. The example is given. See, in India still now we burn firecrackers. That is, one is Fuljadi. Fuljadi means they emit sparks. There is a stick, they emit sparks. So children wave this like this, burning stick. So when they wave it fast, we see a circle of fire. See the examples. So that circle of fire is not there actually. It is made up of momentary images only. So these people say, this is the Buddha view, that similarly, just like that ring of fire actually does not exist, but it is just a combination of momentary impulses. Similarly, they say that the world is also an aggregate of different momentary impulses. So in cinema, what used to happen? Cinema, they have a big, huge reels. They have a projector. So those reels, they revolve at a very fast pace. So when we see in the cinema hall, they appear to be moving. But those are all momentary impulses which are combined. So they say similarly, the world is also an aggregate of momentary elements only. You don't need any God or anything permanent here. And the fifth view, they say that the world is not there at all. It is an illusory product of our imagination. We imagine so many things. Does that make it true? No. So, the world is also totally a product of our imagination. This is called in philosophy subjective idealism. Slowly we will come to know those terms. Subjective idealism, that everything exists in the mind only. There is nothing outside. So these points, please try to remember, because we will now discuss. To understand the Vedanta view, we have to understand how Vedanta contradicts the contrary views. So these views, how are they proved to be illogical by Vedanta? We have to understand those. Yeah. So one by one we will take up. Yeah, Tylenol's handy, please. So, first view, that the world is a product of material elements which by themselves combine. So all these answers have been given by the great Shankaracharya. He says that the world cannot be a product of material elements which combine themselves together of themselves. And it cannot also be a transformation of an unconscious nature that spontaneously evolves. Prakriti, according to Sankhya. Now, what we have studied about other philosophies will come in handy. That is why we had discussed those. So in Sankhya we have discussed that Prakriti evolves of itself. Shankaracharya says that is not possible. Also, product of two kinds of independent reality, matter and God. So matter is the material and God is the efficient cause. That also is not possible. How? Why? He answers. He says, first of all, if you say that the material combine themselves, an unconscious cause, materials are unconscious. Have you ever seen in the world that unconscious things combine themselves? If you want to make tea, will you stand and will that tea be mixed in the milk automatically and the sugar will come from somewhere? Does that happen? No. You have to do that. You who are conscious. So, an unconscious cause cannot produce anything, let alone the world. This is common sense. And he says, if you say that there are two ultimate realities, one is conscious, God, and the other is unconscious, matter, which is producing the world by interaction, like a potter making a pot, that also is unsatisfactory. Because the scriptures say everything is Brahman, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahman. And the scriptures say that matter and mind are not independent realities, but they are grounded in the same reality, which is absolute and independent. So, your theory that God is completely separate and matter completely separate is denied by the Upanishads. And he will give another logical answer also, we will see. So, the Sankhya, as we have seen, they say that Prakriti is the unconscious primal matter. And within it, it is made up of three gunas. Prakriti is made up of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas gunas. It gives rise, it evolves the whole world without the guidance of any conscious agent. Purusha and Prakriti are two independent realities. But according to Sankhya, Purusha does not do anything. So they say Purusha is just present and Prakriti, which is unconscious, evolves itself. That Shankaracharya says is not possible. Why? Because without the guidance of a conscious agent, how can this harmonious world with everything in place, nicely adjusted, how can this be created by something which has no consciousness at all? Is it ever possible? And Sankhya itself admits that this world consists of bodies, senses, organs, and all these are just meant for education of the soul so that the soul can free itself. So all these are meant for the soul. The whole nature is meant for the soul. So this complicated plan, can anything unconscious carry out this plan? So on the one hand, Sankhya says there is a purpose in the world. What is the purpose? The education of the soul. But at the same time, they deny the existence of a conscious creator. So if there is a purpose behind something, how can you say that it is the result of unconscious matter? It cannot be. How can matter be purposeful for another set of matter or for the soul if it is not guided by any conscious agent? It is not possible. So this whole reasoning, Shankaracharya says, is absurd, because such a well-adjusted universe where everything goes by plan. We know if we want light, we have to press the light switch, not the fan switch. If we want heating, we don't start the air conditioner. So everything is planned. So such a perfect planning, how can it come from itself? Is it possible? In a factory, shall we stand aside and say, oh, machines, go to work of itself? You have to employ persons who are conscious, who will do according to a plan. To say that the whole world is guided by an unconscious principle is absolutely illogical. So, in the world, you can give not even a single example of an unconscious object performing a complicated, purposeful act. It cannot be. Even if there is an object, such an object, it is guided by some conscious principle. That is the thing. So, this is one theory which is not possible. Now we come to another theory, what? That we had seen when we discussed the Vaisheshika theory. They said the world is caused by a combination of atoms, which are again unconscious. So the same answer is given here also. Because atoms are unconscious, they cannot create this wonderfully adjusted world. Vaisheshikas say that there is a law for the regulation of the atoms and all. That is true. But according to them, this law is also unconscious. And first of all, when the first movement of atoms began, how did it begin? To begin some movement, you need some conscious agent. How can you say that the first movement of atoms began, then it carried on of itself? It is not logical. So, this theory of the Vaisheshikas is also denied. Now we come to the next point, that the Buddhists, one school of the Buddhists, think that the world is an aggregate of different momentary elements. Now this has to be explained. We will explain it in a little detail. First of all, what is a moment? Everything has to be defined. What is a moment? In mathematics, what is a point? A point is, in mathematics, it has been defined as something which has no length and no breadth. That is a point. So here also, what is a moment? A moment is called in Sanskrit kshana. Ek kshana, one moment. What is that moment? If you say everything is momentary, everything stays for only one moment, then first define a moment. Now they say that the definition of a moment is the smallest unit of time. What is that? You cannot say. Why you cannot say? Suppose you start with a second. You divide into half a second. You divide into half again, quarter of a second. You divide into half again, 1/8 of a second. So however far you proceed, if the moment is something tangible, it can be divided again. Just think about it. It is a very subtle thing. You can never have a moment which cannot be divided, because if it is a moment, even it is for an infinitesimal second, it can still be divided. So their definition of moment is something like our definition of a point. We work with points, but we say the point has no, although it is there, it is not there. So their movement is also something like that, the smallest unit of time. They say everything is momentary. And the whole world is an aggregate of different momentary elements. So Shankaracharya in answer, it says that if everything lasts only for a moment, how can they cause another thing to be produced? See, world is a sequence of what? A cause and effect. So, wood has made this house. Wood is the cause, the house is the effect. You say that the whole world is made up of momentary cognitions, momentary things. If the wood does not even last for more than a moment, how can I build a house from that? Anything which does not even last more than a moment, how can it give rise to anything else? How can it be the cause of anything else? A potter makes a pot. You say that the potter will last only for a moment, infinitesimal unit of time, which we cannot even define. So how could it give rise to that pot in that time? If anything is there only for a moment, it can never be, it can never possess any causality. Causality means the ability to create something else, to give rise to something else. It can never be. Because to produce an effect, first the cause must arise and then the cause must act. If I am to create a pot, first I have to be born. Then I have to act. If my existence is momentary, then how can I create a pot? So if you people say that the objects of the world are aggregates of different momentary elements, this is silly, because momentary elements cannot give rise to anything else. Because you only tell us that they don't last for longer than a moment. So this cannot be true. And according to Buddhas, they say that when there is an aggregation of these different elements, momentary elements, then consciousness is produced. They, other way around they say. Vedanta says that first there is consciousness. That conscious God creates the universe. But they say, they put the cart before the horse. They say that first all these momentary elements are there. When they come together, they give rise to consciousness. So here also the old problem comes up, that the cause is unconscious. Something which is unconscious gives rise to consciousness, according to the Buddhas. That is not possible. That cannot be. So these are very detailed discussions, but I am just giving you a briefest possible answer. Now the most difficult of these, which is difficult because it is similar to Advaita Vedanta in some aspects. So it becomes very difficult to understand what is the distinction between those two things. This one is number 5. Point number 5, you have seen what was that? It says the world is an illusory product of our imagination. Many people think that this is the Vedanta view, that the world does not exist. World is mithya. Mithya, they think that it has no existence. No. It is not the Vedanta view. This is the view which is called subjective idealism, and it is held by one school of Buddhism. So before we understand how Shankaracharya answers them, in a few sentences, we should first understand what they want to say. That the world is completely illusory. What do they want? So this school of Buddhism is called Yogacara school. Yogacara, subjective idealism. According to it, we have just discussed in brief, but we will go into a little detail. According to it, the absolute reality is a plurality of what? Plurality means many things. So they say the absolute reality consists of infinite things. What are those things? Those things are momentary cognitions in individual streams of consciousness. See, first of all, if there is a cognition, there has to be consciousness. That is common sense. If I see something, if I hear something, then I have to be conscious. The table chair cannot see the chair cannot see the table, but we can see. Why? We can cognize the table, we can cognize the chair. Why? Because we are conscious. So they say we admit consciousness. Without consciousness, there cannot be cognition. But we say that the absolute reality is nothing but these momentary cognitions in individual streams of consciousness. My stream of consciousness, I perceive many things. Your stream of consciousness, perceive many things. So these are all momentary. I see chair now, I see the table next, I see the sky another time. These are all momentary cognitions. So these momentary cognitions, and cognitions can only happen in a stream of consciousness only. They say. Consciousness, according to them, is also a stream. It is not stable. So they say that in this stream of consciousness there are momentary cognitions. That is all. And they make up this whole aggregate of this world. So there is no permanent self-abiding consciousness according to them. Vedanta says there is a permanent self-abiding consciousness which is Brahman. They say no, we don't admit that. There is nothing permanent. It is just stream of consciousness and momentary cognitions in that. And another thing which they say, there are no external objects at all. This table, it is not there according to them. There are no external objects. It is all an illusion. They say that the table is in your mind and you see it outside. So this Yogacara school, subjective idealism, they recognize the reality of consciousness. That is why they are close to Vedanta in one aspect. They recognize the reality of consciousness but do not admit the reality of one infinite, eternal, self-luminous consciousness called Brahman. They believe in a beginningless series of momentary cognitions which appear and disappear in individual minds or streams of consciousness. So they said, see, you are seeing a chair now, you see a table next, you see a sky, you see the sky the third moment. So these momentary cognitions are all there in your stream of consciousness. And you think they are outside. They say there is nothing outside. So the discrete momentary cognitions in individual streams of consciousness constitute the reality of the Yogacara school. But what is reality according to Vedanta? The one eternal universal consciousness or Brahman. So that is why the Yogacara is called a subjective idealist. Subjective, pertaining to me. Idealism means everything exists only in the mind, there is nothing outside. He reduces, the Yogacara school, he reduces the external objects to mere cognitions of the individual mind. He says there is no table. You are just cognizing a table in your mind. There is no table outside. He does not recognize the existence of the permanent self or Brahman. He says there everything is just momentary, sensations, feelings, ideas. And he does not admit the reality of external objects distinct from, independent of my cognition. He says that if I don't see a table now, there is no table. Because table is not in my consciousness. So if I don't see if I am not aware of something right now, it is actually not there at all. I see a table only when the momentary sensation of a table appears in my individual consciousness. So the most obvious fallacy is in this theory, as Shankaracharya will point out, that if you say I see a table only when the table is existent in my consciousness, then how can the other person also see a table? If the table only exists till it is there cognized in my internal consciousness, it is only subjective, then how can all the persons see the table? So we will take step by step these answer which Shankaracharya gives. So these are the Buddhist. In Buddhism also there are many schools. This is one school. Hundreds of schools. So Buddhists who hold the subjective idealism we have discussed, they declare that the world like a dream is only an illusory product of the imagination. Unfortunately, many people think that this is the Vedanta view. This is not the Vedanta view. Vedanta contradicts that. Shankaracharya answers this Yogacara. How? He says the existence of external objects cannot be denied. Because, as I said, because if you say that this table exists only as a momentary cognition in my stream of consciousness only, then how can other person see it? It is not possible that they will also have that same cognition at the same time. It is not possible. So if you say that there is no kitchen when I don't see a kitchen, so nobody can go and prepare food in the kitchen at that time. So to deny the existence of external objects like a pot or a cloth or a pillar which is being perceived right now is just denying the satisfaction which we get from eating, the pleasure which we get from seeing some good scenery. So you are experiencing those and you are denying those. What stupidity! You are contradicting your own experience. And you say that yes, second answer. So second answer is, you see, they are so logical, that is the thing. Once you really simplify that, they are not so difficult to understand. Second answer is, you say that the external objects are not there. Immediate experience is not there. I am eating food, I am getting satisfaction. You are telling that it is a false thing. Then, if that is false, then how can the reality of the mental states which you are telling, upon which you base everything, how can those be true? You say that the table exists. Why? Because there is a momentary cognition of a table in my mind. You deny the existence of a table. Then, how can you prove that that momentary cognition in your mind is true? We say that is also untrue. If everything is illusion, then how do you know that the momentary cognition is also not an illusion? You cannot prove it. This is the second answer. Now, this third answer is very subtle. So even if we cannot grasp, if we think about it, we can grasp later. This is the answer is, now please pay attention. You say that the ideas of the mind appear as external objects. Okay? You say that the ideas are there in the mind. Idea is of a table. There is no table outside. So you say that the idea of the mind is appearing as an external object. What do you mean by the term external object when there is no external object at all according to you? I will say this boy, Tom, looks like the son of a barren woman. Does this statement have any meaning?
No.
There is no barren woman. The son of a barren woman. They cannot be, by the very definition. You say this house looks like a castle in the air. Does that have any meaning? Because there cannot be a castle in the air. So when I say this substance A looks like something which can never be, it is the most stupid statement I can make. Could you grasp it? I say A looks like B, but I also say there is nothing like B ever. Then what a stupid statement it is. If there is nothing like B, then how can A look like B? So you people say there are no external objects. But again you say that these momentary cognitions appear as external objects. So what kind of a stupid statement is that? If there are no external objects at all, how can these appear as external objects? See, this is a very subtle point. So when we think, it will be clear. This is the third answer of Shankaracharya contradicting these. Yeah. So I say that I ate food and I got satisfaction, but I deny the existence of food. Is it ever possible? So they say there are no external objects, but again they say that the momentary cognitions appear as external objects. You are denying the external objects. So how can something appear like something which is not there at all? This statement itself is a fallacy. Then you say another answer. See, you say that everything is just a stream of momentary cognitions in the mind. Okay. Now you wear a cloth, you drink water from a pot. Why don't you wear the pot and drink water from a cloth? Because everything is just momentary cognition. So where is the difference between a pot and a cloth? Because according to you, there is no external object at all. If there is no external object, what makes these cognitions different? Something must be distinguishing one cognition from another. But you say there is no external object at all. Then how can these cognitions be different? If they are not different and they are existing only in the mind, then how can you distinguish between a table and a chair and a cloth and a building and a whatever it is? What distinguishes them? The only thing which distinguishes them is name and form. You say there is nothing. No name, no form. So what is there to distinguish them? First of all, the very theory that there are no external objects has been proved to be false. even if we suppose we admit, for the sake of argument, that there are external objects, what is there to distinguish between them if everything is only a momentary cognition in your mind? There is nothing to distinguish them. Then another answer. He leaves no ground for doubt. You see, he is such a thorough. He says, you say everything is like a dream. Dream is an illusion. But it cannot be. Because dream is contradicted by waking experience. So if you say dream and waking state are same, it cannot be. I dreamt last night I was the king of England, but when I woke up I was the same person. So my dream has been contradicted by my waking experience, but my waking experience is not contradicted by anything. So how can you say that it is just like this world? The world is a dream. This world cannot be a dream. So these are the answers in brief. So according to Vedanta, external objects perceived during waking experience cannot be said to be unreal till they are not contradicted by the supreme experience, which is the realization of the ultimate reality. So that is another thing we will, no, I don't want to confuse matter most by bringing that here. So in short, this theory, subjective idealism, that there are no external objects, and these objects appear only because of momentary cognitions in individual consciousness, it falls to the ground. And this another theory which we had discussed, that God is like a potter and he creates the world out of world is just like clay and God creates the world, that also cannot be accepted, because a potter can make a pot out of clay, a spirit can act upon matter, Atman can act upon matter only through a body. If I am the pure spirit, all-pervading spirit, I cannot make anything. For making anything, I need a mind, I need organs, so I need a body. So if you say that God has created the world like a potter creates a pot, then God also has to have a body. And he must have a desire to create a pot. A potter will create a pot only if he has some desire. But God does not have any desires. And God also cannot have a body. If he has a body, he will be limited to the body. Then outside the body, there will be no God. So this also cannot stand. If God is limited to a body, how will he be different from us? So what is the concept of God in Vedanta? Vedanta says that God pervades the world, but he is not exhausted by the world. That there is a word boundary of the world, God is also within that boundary. Not at all. He also is beyond it. So according to Vedanta, God is both immanent and transcendent. We have to understand these terms. What does immanent mean? Immanent means pervading and sustaining the universe. कण कण में ईश्वर व्याप्त है, is this say in Hindi. Like when Prahlada was tortured by Hiranyakashipu. See, these subtle principles are illustrated through stories. When Prahlada was a great devotee, his father, King Hiranyakashipu, was a very evil person, demon, king of demons. So Prahlada always used to say, God is everywhere. Then one day Hiranyakashipu became very angry. Said, you fellow, I am God. You don't worship me as God and you speak of some God who is pervading everywhere. This is the pillar. He showed one pillar in the castle. This is the pillar. Is God there also? Prahlada said, of course, God is there also. So Hiranyakashipu said, okay, I will destroy this pillar. Let's see if God comes out. So he kicked the pillar. Pillar broke into two, and God as a lion and man combined came out. We all know that story. But it is a fascinating story. We can discuss it in detail sometime. So this fact that God is immanent means it pervades and sustains the entire universe is demonstrated by this story. So although God exists, pervades the universe, but it is not subject to the limitations of the universe. And it is not that beyond the universe there is no God. He is also transcendent. Transcendent means existing apart from and not subject to the limitations of the universe. So nothing can limit God. You cannot say God is limited to the universe, and you even cannot say that God is independent of the universe. Just like a potter is independent of the pot, you cannot say God is independent of the universe. He pervades the universe. So how can you say that he and matter, God and matter are different and God created the world out of matter? Not at all. He also pervades the matter. So this is how all the theories, nearly all the theories, important ones, which describe the relation of the world and God, but which are not in agreement with Vedanta, they are proved to be illogical by the great Vedantin, the greatest of all maybe Shankaracharya. Now, then what is Shankaracharya's conception of the world? He has no conception of his own, mind you. They only tell us what the scriptures mean. Please always remember that. If you go to some school, this college, university and all, they will say Shankaracharya is the propounder of Advaita. Not at all. He never said Advaita philosophy did not exist before I came. He only said that I am telling you the real import of the scriptures. That is all. Like the great Swami Vivekananda, he said, I have never spoken a word other than Vedanta. I have not given my own something original, not at all. I have only told you what is there in our scriptures so that we can grasp and understand. So, according to Shankaracharya, what do the scriptures say about the world and its relation to Brahman and creation? We will see next time. So, please come with some Advil also next time. Sleeping pills are not necessary because Marita had a good sleep today. I could see. Yeah, I don't blame you, Marita, because this is enough to put anybody to sleep. So at least Vedanta can make you sleep. That is also something. So let us first end. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanam